The first thing you'll need to do is to find some wool sweaters. So where do you get a wool sweater? First place would be to check your own closet. You may have a sweater in there that you don't realize that you have, or that you're not wearing that you could use. Thrift stores are a great place to pick up a sweater at a good price. Garage sales and yard sales are one of my favorite places to pick up a good wool sweater. You can usually pick one up for 50 cents up to $5, and sometimes they'll even give them away. Clearance racks in clothing stores are another good place to find a good sweater and at a good price. Some things to look for when you're getting a sweater for craft projects is to make sure that it's 80% or higher in wool content. That way it will felt down and shrink down like you want it to. Inspect the sweater for moth holes and stains. Collect a variety of colors. I like to have a variety of colors to choose from when I'm making wool sweater projects. Sometimes you'll come across a sweater that is a great color or has great design. Make sure that you pick it up because you may not come across it again, and some colors of sweaters are really hard to come by. So if you find a good one, grab it. Get sweaters with varieties of textures and weights. All sweaters have different textures and they're going to felt differently, so you want to make sure that you have a variety for different projects that you're doing. Like cashmere sweaters, they're really thin, they're thinner, and they work great for linings of mittens and slippers, where a more dense sweater to start with is going to even felt down really thick. So you want to make sure that you have some variety of sweaters. You want to maximize your fabric. So what I mean by that is go to the men's section and see if you can find a large sweater. Sometimes you're lucky you can even find an extra large sweater. That way you're getting a lot of sweater for the same price. Don't be afraid, however, to check out the children's section and the baby section even. Even though they're going to they're going to felt down to smaller sizes, sometimes you can find some really cute stripes or fun colors in the baby and children's section. Now that you have washed and dried your sweater, it's time to cut it up and either store it or use it for some of your craft projects. So if there are any buttons or hardware on your sweaters, you'll want to remove those and save your buttons. They'll come in handy for something else. Just start by turning your sweater inside out, exposing the seams. Take a pair of good fabric scissors and start cutting down one of the side seams. You want to cut as close to the center of that side of the seam as you can. And just cut around the sleeve seam. So you're disassembling and taking off the sleeve. Just go ahead and set that aside. Then cut one of the shoulder seams. And depending on what the collar's like, sometimes you'll have to cut around the collar or just cut both shoulder seams over to the other sleeve seam and then cut out the other armhole to remove the other sleeve. Setting the sleeves aside for just a moment. You won't want to cut the other side seam, so just because you might need a project that needs a bigger piece. Go ahead and fold up your fabric. Take your sleeves and just cut down the sleeve seam so that opens it up so you have access to another big piece of felted wool. When you are cutting out your sweaters, if you notice any moth holes or any stains, you can just simply take some masking tape or some painter's tape, rip a piece off, and place it over the hole. That way, when you are cutting out a project, you're not going to cut out a pattern piece that has a hole in it. So if you're like me, you may start acquiring a few sweaters. And you'll want to store them in a safe place away from pests and moisture. You'll want to get some containers to put your sweaters in. Plastic bins work really well with nice tight fitting lids. And as a natural moth repellent, essential oils or herbs are really great. So some essential oils that work well for repelling moths are peppermint oil, thyme, cedarwood, lavender, and rosemary. So you can take some of those oils and dab it on some cotton balls and place those throughout your storage bins, or get some dried lavender and put it in a cotton sachet, and store that in your bins. Get a bin also for the little pieces, the smaller pieces, the scraps of the wool sweaters. Now, there's really not a sweater piece that is too small. So there, I'll be showing you some projects of things to use, little small pieces, and even the little scraps that you don't think you can cut anything out, save those because you can make dryer balls out of those. patterns later. I am still coming up with fun ways to use this felted wool sweater material. I've designed patterns for other slippers, bags, hats, mittens, balls, toys, bunnies and bears, and even birds.